welcome to the Swift Half, your weekly session of chat from the UKOCR and adventure running scene. Each week, pub landlord Alan and our favourite regular Ian discuss races, runners and anything else that comes to mind. So pull up a pew, pour yourself a drink and join us for the Swift Half.
You're listening to the 13th most popular podcast, as listened to by this rabble. You just can't get the staff.
Ian, my friend, welcome to another edition of the Swift Half. How are you?
I'm great, Alan. How are you?
I'm absolutely fantastic. Have I told you that I won a competition this weekend?
You did not tell me. Was it a pie eating contest?
No, it wasn't. I wish it was a pie eating contest. I ended up no pie has passed my lips for quite a while, actually. Does apple pie count? Maybe, I don't know. But no pies apple pie. But I entered the boss competition for the Highland Adventure and I won.
Oh, so what did that entail and what did you win?
So, well, basically, you just have to be a member of British Hobby to do a family members draw. So if you're a member, then you can sort of enter these competitions. So it's free to enter. Just fill a form in. Thank you very much. So I entered it. Didn't really look at the competition. I'm just a glutton for entering competitions and buying stuff. And yeah, so I entered it and I've won. So I've got entry to one of three events. So three events. I'm going to try and remember the names. I think it's Hercules, which is a 100-kilometre run around the Lake District. So it's a walk around the Lake District and it takes 5 days. Or there's a 60-kilometre one that takes 3 days called Pegasus. And then there's one called Leica, which is a one-day event, 20 kilometres. So I thought, that's pretty cool. What I could do, that 5-day event, that 100 kilometres, I could actually do in one day. I'm thinking it's only 60 miles into it. It's nice and easy, 60 miles one day, just over 2 marathons. So I asked if I could do that, and apparently you can't. You've actually got to walk it in 20 kilometres a day and go from checkpoint to checkpoint. And I can't do the one-day event because the one-day event is on the Saturday before I go down to Tough Mudder Midlands. So I've had to say thank you very much, British Obstacle Sports, but can we let someone else have it?
Oh, that's such a shame, Alan. But it happens sometimes, doesn't it? And you can't blame them. There were options available. You just couldn't do any of them.
No, I couldn't. I wanted to do I would have done the 100k one because it started on a Wednesday. So I thought if I can get into that 100k one, I could have gone up Wednesday, 24 hours up there. I'd have done it in 24 hours. It's only 100 kilometres. I've done it in 24 hours. Then I would probably still had enough recovery to go and run 10 miles at Tough Mudder on Sunday. But no. It's not to be. So someone else is going to take advantage of it. Someone else is going to have some fun walking up in the hills in the Lake District and that. So yeah. So big thank you to Boss for the competition, though, because I do enjoy a good competition. Even if you don't have to answer a question, it was very easy to enter. But yeah, well done. I'm pleased with myself. So I'm in a good mood.
Well done to Boss for organising it. Well done to you, Alan, for winning. And well done to you for actually reaching out to them and say, you know what, I can't use it. Let someone else have it.
Well, I was talking to James and James says someone else will use it if you can't make it. And I went, yeah, go on then. So it was an easy escape for me, which was quite good. But I mean, before we got, there's lots of news this week, Kim. There's lots of news this week. So how's your week been, first of all? And what are you drinking?
Well, my week has been really hot and warm and humid and yeah, American listeners, it's about 80 degrees in your language. It is hot. Yeah, Alan?
It is, but I'm not going to complain, Ian. I'm in my office right now and I've got my windows closed and my doors closed and I'm sweltering, to say the least. I'm actually going to open a window in a minute, I think, so I don't think I can go the rest of the day. But it's beautiful weather, though, isn't it? We can't grumble, because all we've done is we've moaned for the first 6 months of this year about how wet it's been and how cold it's been.
That's true, but I did feel sorry for one guy, Alan.
Go on. Which one?
I felt sorry. There was a guy who lives not too far from me. He's got a lovely flowing beard. He tends to wear a lot of robes, and he was going around collecting animals 2x2 for this massive boat he was doing, and he can't use it now.
He only got to wait about another 2 months and he will be able to use that boat here. There will be no problems with that.
No, absolutely. In terms of what I'm drinking, I'm currently on a Rubicon. We are on pink grapefruit blood orange.
Ooh, a bit of pink grapefruit. Um, I was on grapefruit this weekend. I was on Elvis Juice AF that you brought down to my barbecue. That was the final bit of Elvis Juice AF that I had. I love a bit of Elvis Juice AF. So yeah, it's all grapefruit.
So, what are you drinking today?
Today I am on alcohol free. I'm on Up Big Drop Brewing Company because I've got loads of that left. I'm on Uptime Craft Lager. It's not the greatest, if I'm honest, but it's all right. It's not bad. I have had better beer, but it's alcohol free and it keeps us going, doesn't it? It's like I'm in that mood again where I'm going to go completely alcohol free for a short period of time. Might last one day, might last one week. Who knows?
I actually saw something on Facebook. I'm not going to embarrass the person, but it was someone saying they've now been sober for 365 days because they felt they're getting addicted to beer. And well done to people. Yeah, alcohol is one of them things. For some people, it just doesn't agree with them. Some people are able to drink when they want to drink and not. Others, it can really take hold. So that person judged that it was taking hold a little bit and they stopped.
I turn my hat off to every one of them because I know back in 2010, 2011, when I got into OCR, and people know my story, but if you don't, I was a real heavy drinker, minimum of 12 cans a night, 7 nights a week, weekends, would double that easily. Very, very much addicted to it. I think I want to say I was probably close to an alcoholic. Don't think I could have lived without it, and I did. But I was very, very close to it. But the moment you want to stop drinking, you've got to have, if there's whatever motivation you've got to do it, you will stop it. You can stop it. So anyone out there who is having problems of giving up beer and that, you can do it. And if you want any advice and help, reach out. I'm happy to talk to you and listen to you and that if you're having problems with it.
And to lighten the mood a little bit, I've probably got about a half dozen other hobbies that I can get you addicted to instead.
Yeah, I think that's the thing is sometimes getting another hobby to get us addicted to. Ian, we've got a guest today.
We do have a guest, but before we invite him in, because I'll probably forget, our American landlady has got in touch. She's finally up to date with all the episodes. And you remember back at Christmas time, I don't think it was Christmas time, but I'm sure listeners will tell us. But a while ago, we were talking about student drivers in America.
Oh yeah, yeah, the people because they can drive at 16 and that or something.
Yeah, so Sophia's got in touch and said that the student drivers do practice and sort of test in a parking lot using cones. They have a written test to pass first, and for the driving test, I had to park between cones in the parking lot, but I also had to go out on the street in the real world. It doesn't sound as intense as our driving test, if I'm honest.
Yeah, yeah. Parking in between cones. I wish I'd have had that. Yeah, mine was scary.
Alan, do you remember your driving test, your actual driving test?
I do, yeah. I actually stalled twice on my driving test. I did an emergency stop when I didn't have to do an emergency stop. Well, I did have to do an emergency stop because a football ran into the middle of the road. So I slammed the brakes on, and the driving instructor said, "Why have you slept brake for a football?" And then the next second, a little kid ran out, and I went, "That's why I've stopped." So I did two. I did, and then he said, "We'll do an emergency stop." And he said, "Oh, when I tap on the thing," I went, "We've already done one." And before I'd finished it, he tapped, so I did another emergency stop. So I did two. I didn't think I'd pass because I stalled twice, both at roundabouts, and I was living in Kettering at the time. But I did everything right. If you ever stall it, handbrakes on, you do all the right things. I did all the right things, but I thought I haven't passed, and that was quite early on in my driving test. And so then I just relaxed for the rest of it, and I was chatting to him and talking to him throughout. And then when I got out, he went, "How do you think you've done?" I went, "I've failed it, haven't I? I've stalled it twice." And he went, "You did everything right, everything to the textbook. After you stalled it, he says they're just two minors, so no, you haven't failed, you've passed." And I was like, "Yeah."
My story's similar in that I struggled when I took my test. It was where they asked you something there and then. So I walked to the car and he said, "Oh, can you show me where to put oil in?" I could not get the bonnet open for love nor money. I thought I was going to have to get a crowbar or something because I couldn't figure out how to get this bonnet open. I'd done it previously. I just couldn't figure it out. So because of that, in my mind, I'd failed. I didn't realize it was only a minor. So I just went for what I thought was a driving lesson. Right at the end, they told, "Oh, can you reverse park here?" And I just put it in full lock and then reversed and somehow managed to get between the lines. And he said, "Oh, you have passed, by the way." And he just walked off.
Oh, results. I think that's the key, isn't it? Probably make a mistake and think you failed, and then, well, that's the key for me and you, and then just drive normally and pass your test. Do you think you pass your test now? If you took it now, do you think you'd pass now?
I would spend my life on trains, trams, and buses if they made me take a test again.
Yeah, I'm probably a little bit worried. I think I'm a safe driver, but yeah, I'm not sure if I very much cross my arms now. Is it 10 to 2? You had to drive with you couldn't cross arms, and you fed it through. I cross my arms all the time, and I drive one-handed, and yeah, I think I'd have to have a couple of lessons. I think I'd have to have a couple of lessons before I took my test again.
Yeah, and I imagine it's the same for all the listeners out there. But let us know if you think you could pass your test now. And Alan, before I rudely interrupted you, you were about to introduce a guest into the show.
Well, let's ask Mr. Will Chung, would you pass your test today?
I am not sure. I do have some bad habits. I actually, just going back to the first time I passed my test, first one I failed, but I was then, unfortunately, one of the very first people to take the written test because I'd failed the first time, had to then go do the written test, and then I passed the second time. So, and the written test was a lot easier at that point. I think you only needed to get 20 out of 40 questions, and there was all multiple choice questions correct. I was in and out in 5 minutes. Such a waste of money.
I like that. I like that. Will, thanks for coming and joining us. And it's a busy week for you. I'm going to assume that this weekend you're off down to the British Championships and Spartan for a little bit of running.
I am going down that weekend. You guys were talking about me last week, weren't you? And yes, my parents are from or based in Newark, which is only just 10 minutes down the road. I was actually born in Grantham for my sins, so I know the area very well. So I'll be down there this weekend. Might not be able to make the British Champs. It's on a bit too early, if I'm honest. But I'll be around for Spartan. I am actually taking one of my friends who is a pentathlete, and we're going to go around and do the super. That'll be fun.
Nice one. Is Carl not joining you? Because Carl's usually a big fan of Spartan.
Oh yes, Carl. For his probably only one OCR out for the season now. He's. I know not many people know Carl anymore, but he's coming back from Tunisia, I think, on the Saturday. Then we're running on the Sunday, and I think on the Wednesday he's off to Las Vegas or something like that. So it's almost as though he's in the country just to go run Spartan with me. So that's nice.
Oh, that's friendship for you, that Ian. That's friendship. I wouldn't come back off holiday to run Spartan. Not there's anything about Spartan, I just wouldn't come back off holiday.
Well, that's because you'd be in jail.
Yeah, that's because I would be in jail. Yes, Saturday morning, 7:30. That's a very early start for the British Champs, isn't it?
Really early, but of course if you guys haven't listened already, there's obviously Who's Hot that came out this week. But we're speaking to James and to Spartan. Of course, they've got other beast races going on through the day, so it's as and when we can fit in. And also, you know what, the competitive guys, they're always so ready to get up early and go out early. So you know what, it's no different for them. They'll be fine.
Well, good. I'm looking forward to it, and that I'm off on my funny race on Friday night, so it's going to be a late night for me Friday, getting home from the place where I don't know where I'm running from, if I don't get lost. So Saturday morning, if I'm not down there, I probably still am lost, by the way. But then we've also got the AGM, the British Obstacle Sports AGM, on Saturday evening, live in Grantham. That's going to be good.
Yeah, I think it's going to be an interesting one, isn't it? It's gone are the times when everything's always have to be over Zoom. you know what? It's great to kind of see the whites of people's eyes, have a chat, you know, and talk about the AGM afterwards, and it's a really good way of being able to do it. So yeah, all power to them. If they're the more people they can get and start to really build the momentum, then all the better. It's much better than
Cool.
Zoom.
Have you
And
casted your vote, Ian? Have you casted your votes?
I was just about to say that for those of you who haven't yet cast your votes, including me, make sure that you cast your votes. I probably should check when you have until to cast your votes. So let me just check that, Alan. While I'm doing that, do you want to talk to Will about why he's on the show?
So yes. So Will, we got a message on over the weekend about Total Warrior up in Leeds, which I know you went to, being dry, actually in no mud. So I've reached out to a few people to ask what it was like, and Ian mentioned, well, actually Ian mentioned it, and I also saw on your Instagram account that you was at Total Warrior. So I thought, why don't we get Will on to tell us what it was like? So Will, Total Warrior. I see you went with a few solo mudders and that.
Yeah, I went with Craig and Glenn, and obviously Leeds isn't too far from me, so it's a great run. And first of all, 17,000 people over the weekend did Total Warrior. That's the email that we got afterwards. 17,000 over a weekend.
Wow.
Absolutely amazing, absolutely amazing. So muddy? No, it wasn't. And you guys know Bramham Park quite well too. It's really nice, almost manicured fields. There's only the one bit of wet where you're going into over the fire jump into what they call the mud moguls and cement mixer. But actually, that was it. But it's great running, some absolutely fantastic obstacles. And there's a bit like the jump into the water where you're trying to hit the bell, the slide. One of the best slides in the UK. Again, on the video, and I'll put a longer Instagram reel of it of the slide. But I don't know, 100 foot or something, straight into a pool of water. Ace Fletcher was out there volunteering. I've not seen Ace for ages, so it was great to see him out there marshalling. But some really, really good obstacles. 12K, there's also the 12K version. And I think on the Sunday there was the ultra version. So a bit of something for everyone, really. And I guess the funny thing that we'd noticed is there were so many more northern accents. We're not just kind of Yorkshire, because listen to you guys all the time. But actually, some guys from Newcastle and further north seem to. Sorry, Lancashire as well. But further north. So it's just great that it's pulling in so many more races. And you know, I was thinking about it. How many northern races are there? There's very few. There's Tough Mudder. There's Born Survivor and Total Warrior. That's about it. So I'm actually not surprised that 17,000 people took over the weekend. I was there till what 2 o'clock. We started to leave, but people were still filling waves after 2 o'clock. So yeah, absolutely brilliant. Great atmosphere. Weather was absolutely awesome, which also helped it why it wasn't so muddy. Free beer, live music in the event village, lots of different food options. No, brilliant. It was such a good event. The atmosphere is amazing, and you know, all power to them. Hopefully, others like Born Survivor will start to grow very much like that, and hopefully a few more northern races.
Very much so, very much so. When you go in the mud then, so there's not very much mud apart from the fire jump and the moguls. Did they not take you where you went through some woods, which was like it's always muddy. There's some woods with a really deep muddy section. It used to be quite long.
That's the bit. It goes into the water jump, doesn't it? Then there's kind of they call it mud moguls, but a bit like a mud mile. And then what they call it the cement mixer, which is just kind of knee deep, waist deep mud that you're going through for about 10, 15 foot. But there's that. I think that would be no more than, I don't know, a few 100 foot of mud and water. But that was it. Then you go out, and then I don't know whether you remember, Alan, but you kind of then follow the woods through a trail back into some water under a net, and you kind of going backwards, and then you kind of hit the slide. So the rest of it is all so much trail and woodland trail that there isn't really any room for mud, unless I guess the weather would have been, if the weather was bad, then obviously a lot more mud. But the weather's been great, hasn't it, over the past couple of weeks? So it's dried everything out.
Yeah, I know when I did it about 4 or 5 years ago, just pre-COVID, when you start and you go down the hill, you now turn right to do the hill slaloms, don't you? Where before you used to turn left first of all, and you go over a little horsey jump, like a little horse jump that you went in, and it was just there was a little stream, and then that followed by quite a lot of mud. Now I know they didn't have it for the last 2 years. I wonder if they brought that back. No, they've not brought that back either.
No, same route as what you've just said.
Yeah.
Down the hill, turn right towards the hill slaloms.
Did they have the ice bucket quite early on? Because I know last year that caused quite a few queues and that. So the hill slaloms, and then they had the ice plunge. Was that the same place?
No, I think it was a bit same place, but it's a bit further on. So it's definitely after the mud mogul. So maybe about 3 or 4K in, something like
Okay.
that you get to the ice plunge. And to be fair, I think for the competitors, if there was a competitive wave, I think by 4 or 5K it should have been kind of spread out. And they had two of the bins anyway, you just walk in, rather than a slide in, duck under. It was bloody cold. Refreshing, yes. Bloody cold, yeah. Loads of ice, again, it is fantastic. Great event. Slide, probably, as I mentioned, probably one of the best slides in the UK. Just really nice and long. And then they've got, actually, they did have a new obstacle. And basically it's a scaffolding kind of line. And if you think of almost like monkey bars, but it's just one. So you're sliding along it, and then you're just sliding on. And at the end of this big pole is a bell. So hit the bell, and then you just fall into the water. But it's then doubled up with, do you remember is it waterfall? So you then swim through that little pool of water, and then you're up onto a climbing frame with the water coming down at you. So it was a really nice kind of double obstacle at that point with the water. So that was cool. Again, whether you kind of completed that obstacle or not, you're still getting wet because you're still falling into the pool, a bit like King of Swingers. Doesn't matter whether you hit the bell or not, you're still getting wet.
I do like that a little bit about Total Warrior, and I know we've had the UKOCR series there twice, and we didn't have it this year because it clashed with the British champs with 1 week apart. But I do like about Total Warrior that a lot of their obstacles are about completion rather than, like you said, going down the slide, you're going to get wet anyway, but you ring the bell. It's that, what's the word I'm looking at? That accomplishment, that feeling of accomplishment when you actually get to the bell and you've rang it. And same as they have the one where you jump. Did they have the one where you jump again to hit a bell?
Yeah, they had that in there. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's like an accomplishment to hit it. You know what I mean? And I like that idea of them. So yeah, good on Total Warrior.
It's a fantastic event, and I've just seen the emails to go out. Obviously, talk about the 17,000, but the price it's £60 to run either on the Saturday or the Sunday. Add on your car park, add on some bag drop, but you're still saying, let's say, £70 for a really decent pay run. Again, fantastic atmosphere. As long as it's sunny, you could just sit there, have your beers. There's a bar there. Live music was going on throughout the whole day. I believe there's now camping. So if you wanted to make a weekend of it, as a lot of Legionnaires do with Tough Mudder, there's that option there too. So I'm really a big advocate of the race. It's great to have a northern race, and with so many people going, then hopefully it'll go strong, and hopefully they'll get another venue again like they did in the olden days.
That was at Shap. I mean, that Shap was like a super venue, super hilly. And I know I spoke to them several times about going to Shap. And although that's where the base, that's where all the obstacles are kept, from 1 year to the next and that, they just don't have the land there to get the numbers like they do at Leeds. They're looking at 5,000 maximum, whereas they can come to Leeds and, like you say, get 17,000. And they also get the kids there all through the week. So, and I know you was at Tower at the weekend, but from Monday to Friday, they get children from all the schools coming up, and I think last year they had something like 15 to 20,000 children went on that course Monday to Friday. So it's great what they're doing. They're putting a lot of effort into Leeds to get people running there. So it's great news.
Will, I've got a question. When it came to people who took part, you mentioned there were 17,000 there. How would you describe them? Would they be what we'd say OCR honks, or was it people from the gym who perhaps it was their first or second ever race?
Very, very much that. It's amazing to see so many kind of gym runners and so many people from work going together for charity. There was so much there going on. It's absolutely fantastic to see. Yeah, so there were, we met Andy. Andy's at all the races, Andy and Janine. So there's some of what you'd call the honks. But generally they're all kind of first timers. Maybe they only do Total Warrior every year, sort of thing. But the number of big groups, and we're talking, 15, 20, 30 in a group that were doing it, either a work thing or a charity thing or a gym thing, was amazing.
Would you say it's a little bit like Tough Mudder used to be, Will, when Tough Mudder, I remember going back like 15 years when Tough Mudder had so many corporate groups, and charity groups running, whereas now they don't have as many.
Well, I haven't done Tough Mudder for that long, but I would say yes. Yeah, it's definitely one that people in the North will know, and it's just kind of I do think that they're so well known in the North that rather than maybe in the South, people say, "Hey, do you want to do Tough Mudder for charity, or let's do it as a motivation weekend, whatever." They do. Oh, let's all go do Total Warriors. So it's same thing, just in the North, I guess.
I've got a question. I've definitely got a question, Alan.
Go on.
15 years ago in 2009, is that when you won Tough Mudder?
No, mate, I've never won. Tough Mudder would never ever compare to it. I've never ever ran a competitive wave at Tough Mudder.
You've done Europe stuff for Mudder.
Well, that's no longer competitive to me. I'm not. Yeah, I know it's a competitive race, but it's not a competitive to me. It's the challenge to me. However, saying that, yeah, if I run the same laps this year as I ran last year, then I would have won my new age group.
So you're not being competitive at all.
Not maybe. It's a podium though. In age group a podium. I can call age group a podium.
You're clearly just being cancelled.
Yeah.
So, listener, just so you're aware, if you notice something weird in your Apple podcast app next week with the symbol changing to Who's Hot, don't worry, we got rid of Alan, we just rebranded. We love all you age group runners. Best of luck to each and every one of you at the British Championships this coming weekend.
Yeah, I was only joking. Well, partly joking. Yeah, I was only joking. No, I think it's great that we have age groups. We have UKOCR, we have Masters Group here, and I encourage age groups of all kinds. So, oh gosh, I'm digging a hole even deeper. Anyway, let's move on from this age groupy thingamajig. Yeah, and I will just I'll podium at Europe's Toughest Mudder, and then we can say age groups are good.
No, exactly. And listener, if I'm cancelled too, head over to UKHXR. You'll still be able to hear me there.
Well, thank you for Total Warrior there. But Ian, we've also got another guest in this week because there was another big event up and down south.
There was indeed, Alan. And I am getting concerned because obviously you're doing less Monday interviews. You don't do the fitness racing podcast too much. Are we now going to get lots of guests in on the Swift half so you don't have to do much work on this podcast either?
And you've sussed me out. I'm going to get cancelled apparently, so I could have to do any of these. Remind me. So let's go back to having to do less podcasts because I'll let our listeners into another secret as well that's coming up soon. But let's welcome Wendy. Wendy Brothers, welcome to the Swift Half. Welcome to the pub.
Good evening. Thank you for having me.
Oh no, you're welcome, Wendy. It's good to have you on. So this weekend you was down at Mud Monsters.
I was.
And we were just talking there before you popped in that Total Warrior wasn't as muddy as what we have seen in the past. Now, Mud Monsters, I remember back in the day of Mudstickle, that when they had their awards, that Mud Monsters was always in the top 2 or 3 for muddiest OCRs in the country. Has that changed, or did we still find lots of mud?
We found lots of mud. Maybe, possibly, some of the previous ones might have been even muddier, but there was definitely lots of mud, swimming in it, sometimes having to commando crawl over it. Um, there was a lot of mud. It
Oh,
was good.
fantastic. Good, good. And what was it like? What was the turnout like?
That is two different stories. The juniors was amazing. There were loads of kids. The fun runners was great. The elite, not so much. So where I would like, what I would like to see is a lot more competitive. And when I say competitive, I don't necessarily mean your absolute front runners. There are plenty of people who are competitive in a different level, like myself, for instance. Having a go with a timing, well, it wasn't timing chip, it was timed, but not timing chip. But it would not be really good to see more people out on course with a bib having a go at the technical obstacles and doing penalties if not successful. The course was good, and they'd put a lot of time, effort, money into producing some very good obstacles, which were challenging.
Do you think the timing for competitive runners was potentially wrong, with it being the week after the Euros and then the week before the British Champs? That if you're a competitive runner, you're potentially not going to go and get injured, because we talk about mud monsters. I mean, it's in the title, mud monsters. You expect a lot of mud, and as we know, going through mud, you're not seeing what you're standing on sometimes, and you can twist an ankle very, very easily. Do you think potentially they've had a tough race at the Euros, they've got a tough race at the British Champs, they don't want to go there with a little bit of fatigue and get injured?
I mean, it's a fair comment. Mud Monsters did announce their date before either Euros or British Champs were announced. So I suppose that is the difficulty of where do you put things in the calendar. It is the date they normally do, I think. I remember the last Mud Monsters was a week before Euros, which was equally problematic.
Yeah.
There were, I think, only two of us attended Mud Monsters that year who also went to Euros, where about 50% of the elite field this time had been at Euros and will be at British Champs.
Cool, cool. And what about obstacle wise? Because seen a few pictures. It looked like they've got some different obstacles
Oh,
to
yes.
what they had
So the
before.
course was completely different. They'd redone the course. They've invested a lot in making a really good course. It was a different route. It was obviously the same venue, but a completely different course. And the obstacles were new this year, and should be staying around for a few years. I had a chat with the race directors afterwards, and they are planning to keep these obstacles going for quite a few years now they're in place.
Cool, like it. I like the idea so you're telling me now that they're backed for good. Is that the plan?
Well, I spoke to both the race directors, and Becky did mention that they have a 5-year plan. So I hope I'm not out of order for saying that, but I'm hopeful that they will be around for a while.
Fantastic. How much was it?
Oh, 50, £49 for the race plus £11 for the elite wave, so 60.
Okay. And have tickets gone on sale for next year? Do you know? I haven't seen them
I
yet.
think they have, yes.
Okay. And have you got a prize for them for next year by any chance?
Not on the top of my head. Sorry.
Okay. Watch out this space. We'll put them in the notes if we find the registration. We'll grab them in the notes and that. Are you planning on going back next year? Would you
Oh,
go
of
back
course,
again?
yes. I love Mud Monsters, one of my favourites.
Then what more can you say about it? If you can go back next year, then that tells you that it's a good event, doesn't it? So
It's a really good. It's a good mixture of mud. No, those sorts of obstacles. There's water. There's a very very fast slide which I crashed. I'm so quick on slides. No, that was two very fast slides. And a really good mixture of technical obstacles that were challenging. They also had a good variety of penalties, which I can tell you about the penalties. But it was a mixture. There was some that I was able to do, and there was long running penalties. There was burpees and tire flips at the end, and they were quite a heavy tire, and it was quite a lot of flips.
cool. I guess the big question is though, did you see the monster in the woods?
No, not unless it was
Oh,
a very mild. Oh, maybe the green monster, only at the start line.
okay. Because I know when they used to do it before, they actually had someone. No, I don't mean wait, not someone else. They actually had a real monster
Yeah, they
hiding
did.
in the
Yes,
woods. They had a
he was
real
at the
monster
start
hiding in the
line.
woods. Yeah.
Yeah, I saw him at the start line. I didn't actually see him out in the woods.
Cool, cool. Thank you for joining us, Wendy, and letting us on. You're going to be at the British Champs this weekend?
I am.
And are you going to be at Rude Rampage, I think in
I am.
3 weeks? Is it 3 weeks
It's
from?
in three. Yes, it's yeah, British Champs next weekend, Man v Coast the following weekend, and Rude Rampage the weekend after.
Cool, cool. Are you stopping on with us or are you wanting to shoot off, Wendy? You happy to do either?
Uh, Happy to do either. I'll mute for the moment.
Ian, did you have any questions for Wendy? Or Will?
The only question I had was the one that you asked, which was about the monster. And we need to know next year whether the monster will make an appearance. So, Mud Monsters, if you're listening, please let us know. You never know. Maybe we could get Alan as a dinosaur meeting up with the Mud Monster.
Now that's a plan.
That would be good.
And that's a throwback.
That is a throwback. We've got some notes here. Let's go through some notes. First of all, bad news. I've got some bad news for everyone. So we all know Martin Gemmell, and Martin Gemmell's training athlete or retired athlete, Dash, passed away last week. So heartfelt condolences to Martin and family out there. And Dash is now running around in the sky with many of the other doggies. So bit of heartfelt thing. And some more bad news. So I'm going to call it some discombobulated news. While the European Champs was on, Ian, I sent you a video from World OCR.
You did, and I'm feeling bad that we're following Martin's news with this because yeah.
Because this is just strange.
Yeah, Martin's news was genuinely sad. Well, this is, I guess, sad, but a different type of sad. I'll let you take it away.
Well, the World OCR, as we know, is a new governing body for obstacle course racing around the world that are trying to take over from FISO is probably the best word to explain it. But they released a video this last weekend. It's on our Facebook channels. And I am so confused, Ian, because it's 35 minutes or 40 minutes of complete and utter drivel talking about somebody or something that I've got no ability to talk about because they are not governed and they don't own anything and whatever, but they won't name anything or anyone because they haven't got the facts right because they're frightened of getting sued. That's exactly how I'm seeing it, because they don't name the people they're talking about.
No, listening to that, listener, honestly, don't. If you really, really want something that's nonsense for 40 minutes, go and listen to Swift Half version 1. Go all the way back into the archive, listen to the first one, and it'll probably make just about as much sense.
Yes. It would make even more sense in a modern day world if you go back to episode 1. Oh, I think just wherever you could, if any listeners want to go out there and just find out about it, I'm just going to say go on, scroll to any point in it and just spend 30 seconds listening to it. You don't need to listen to the 39 minutes and 30 seconds because you'll get the gist from listening to the 30 seconds of it. Don't bother listening to it, people. We just need to bring it to your attention because it's out there and people are talking about it.
I guess the problem is, Alan, is I don't know which side to fall down on here. I don't know enough about both sides of our argument, but that has probably done more damage to the cause than they expected it would do. In that they could probably achieve the same with a quick, snappy 5-minute video of just saying who we are, this is why we're doing what we're doing. In fact, Alan, I'm going to spend 30 seconds summing it up.
Go on, 30 seconds, and I've got my stopwatch going now.
Okay. We are World OCR. Some of us used to be in FISO. We're upset with some of the things Ian Adamson has done. We're going to launch our own obstacle world championships. However, we'll do slightly different courses so that we don't get sued off FISO because FISO owns most of the standard courses. And you can either go with us or you can go with Faisal. The end.
Ian, you did it in less than 30 seconds and you summed it all up much better than, than the 40 minutes I listened to of drivel.
Right. Alan, speaking not of drivel, but speaking of some things that you should spend your time on YouTube, I sent this to you because I was speaking to our good friend JP Morn in Ireland, who does Ram Fitness, makes the Spartan Rams, or
Yes.
actually just the Planet Rams now, because they're not just Spartan Rams anymore. And we were talking about Gaelic football because he's in Ireland, and it got me thinking about Trans World Sport. Do you remember Trans World Sport from Channel 4 back in the early 90s?
It was the best ever. Sunday mornings, yeah, when I was playing football, no matter how hungover I was from Saturday night, I got up at 5 a.m. Sunday morning to watch Trans World Sport, to see what sports there were going off all around the world, wrestling in Iran, some like Gaelic football, or there'd be something weird, tiddlywinks competition going off in the USA. Mate, it was the best ever.
Was. And Alan, on YouTube, there are multiple episodes, and most of them are less than 30 minutes, which means you can enjoy them instead of watching the World OCR. Go and watch some Trans World Sport on YouTube. You will not be disappointed. Alan, the one I watched today had Korean sumo wrestling.
Is this, the one that you sent me had sumo wrestling on, but it was like completely the wrong weight. So they had one guy who must have weighed 30 stone against another guy that weighed about 6 stone wet through. And it was weird because the 6 stone guy won, I think, 2 out of the 3 bouts, which I thought was amazing.
It's just fascinating to watch it, isn't it, Alan? And I think maybe one I sent you also had an ultra run in as well, but it was because it was back in the old days. They're making a big deal over something which nowadays, well, Camille Harron would probably do before going out and having breakfast because it was a training run.
Yeah, I loved it. I actually think, if I remember rightly, I think Tough Guy was on one of the Trans World Sports shows, or he was on something like Trans World Sport.
I think you're right. I'm fairly sure somewhere in my distant memory, I remember seeing it before it became all about the obstacles, when it was more a bit of a mud run. And yeah, you had the killing fields, but we weren't as advanced. I'm sure that you had that, Alan. And one of the most fascinating thing about going down this rabbit hole,
Go on.
it still exists.
So you can still watch it on actually like modern day Trans World Sport.
Yeah, it's celebrated its 35-year anniversary, I think, last year. I think, unfortunately, in the UK now, it's behind a paywall. I think it's on Premier Sports, whatever on earth that is, whatever BT Sports used to be. I think it's on that now. But you can watch it even to this day. I need to find a way to watch Premier Sports so I can watch Trans World Sports.
It was the best ever. Will, do you remember Trans World Sports?
Yep, and just like you, I'd watch it every morning. What was really cool was Kabaddi. Do you remember that? And then Kabaddi then had its own show, and I think it's now back on Channel 4. But oh my God, Kabaddi, amazing.
Is this something you ever did, Wendy? Trans World Sports? I know you did a lot of yachting and that when you were younger. Did you
I didn't have television, so no, no television.
You could have actually been on Trans World Sports. You know, like when you was saying that, you might have actually been on Trans World Sports. And
I didn't do any sports. The only sports I was to do was things like spinnaker flying and swimming and snorkeling and diving.
That's exactly what was on Trans World Sports.
Okay, right. Sorry, I haven't watched it.
Oh, it was amazing. It was amazing.
Okay. And for our American listeners, we'll put this in as well. If you're curious about Trans World Sport, go to, well, you could watch Trans World Sport or watch Dodgeball, ESPN, the Octure, or whatever they call it. It is exactly the same, but it's with British commentators. It had all kinds of weird and wonderful sports, and it is the best thing ever. let's see if we can get their viewing figures up on YouTube, because there's plenty to watch on there.
I love it. I love it, Ian. I've got a bit of news. Last week we talked about the spine race and how the winner did it in 3 days. Unfortunately, not everyone's that quick. And I was sent something this week. I'm going to try and find his name out. Just 1 second. So it's a big thank you to Mike Nolan who sent it, by the way. But if anyone knows the spine race, it starts in Edale and it finishes in Kirk Yetholm. And the final hill before you get to Kirk Yetholm is called the Cheviot. Okay? So it's the Cheviot Hills. When you're at the Cheviots, you know you're 15 miles from home. Well, this week, at 258 miles in, it was unfortunate that the Northumberland National Park Mountain Rescue Team was called into action when an injured runner couldn't make it to the finish line. They had to carry him the final 10 miles. And instead of taking him the 10 miles to the finish line, Ian, guess what they did? Opposite direction. So he never finished. Fancy covering 258 miles and not finishing. That's got to be the ultimate DNF.
Oh my gosh. It reminds me of when your Rob decided to take a nap in the hill that time.
That's it. just slept in the. But that's what they do on the spine race, though. They do actually just sleep in shacks, and there's quite a few like special places where it's like a hut and it's got some beds in, so you can sleep in them and that. But yeah, you would just sleep at the side of the hill. But this guy had twisted. It doesn't tell you his name actually on the news, but he twisted his ankle and he couldn't continue. So this is Friday at 13 minutes past midnight of last Friday. It is when they had to pull him off the mountain, and they didn't take him to the finish line. They took him the opposite direction.
Poor guy. On the plus side, he'll make a hell of a story, and I bet you he's got a fair few more Instagram followers.
I think he will have a lot more Instagram followers. Big news this week. There's been big news this week. I am happy, super happy, because I didn't get in the London Marathon. What about you, Ian?
Well, we've discussed this previously. I actually got my rejection email early because I was the idiot who thought it closed entries on the Saturday and it actually closed entries on the Friday night. So I didn't even get in the ballot. So no, I'm not in. No one I know has got in, Alan.
And neither do I. Let's ask our guests. When did you enter first of all?
I actually haven't had an email, but I did apply, so I'm not a little bit confused by that. And I do know a few people who have got in.
Oh, no, this could be interesting because if you haven't got your email, that means you could have got in.
Well, I mean, I presume I would have heard by now. Interestingly, one of the people who has got in was Jasper Birch, who won sorry, brain dead. The big prize for when the huge prize of all the different
the ultimate draw from British Obstacle
That's
Sports.
it. That's the one. Thank you. Yeah, he won that.
I could hear
last
those
year.
cogs going there, Wendy.
Sorry, I had just a moment, absolute moment. Yeah, he won that last year or the year before, and this year he's managed to win entry to London Marathon.
Awesome.
That sounds like a very lucky guy.
Yeah,
I think so. Yeah, and it's actually quite nice to keep in touch with some of our previous winners. And hopefully, we'll see him out on an OCR course. Yes, next year or this year.
Or an unlucky guy if he's got entry into the London Marathon because it's road and there's no mud and things like that. Will, did you enter? And you will have guaranteed to enter. You'd have entered that ballot.
Come on. No, you obviously don't know me well enough that I'm never going to do a bloody marathon. No, not a chance. But talk about cancellations. I do have an unpopular opinion, which if you want me to share.
Give us your unpopular opinion.
Lots of people always put on Instagram, hey, I'm now in ballot. I don't give a shit that you're in the ballot. Tell me when you've won. Then you get lots of rejection. Oh, 10th time I've not got into London. Well, actually, there's a crap load more really good marathons. Manchester, I think, is the week before. I think Brighton is a week after. Some European marathons. You know what? Don't get into London, but you don't go and try and enter a different marathon. You don't deserve to get into London anyway. That's my unpopular opinion of the week.
I partly I agree with you, but I do think that people should. I try and get into London. I do enter London because it's the London Marathon, because it's the capital of England. I was going to say the UK then, but it's not the capital of the UK, it's the capital of England. And it is I want to say the most prestigious marathon in
Boston
the UK.
Marathon. No,
In the UK, yeah, in the UK. So that's why I enter. However, if I really, really wanted to do one, you're quite right. I would probably go and do one of the many others. Manchester I've heard Manchester's absolutely amazing marathon to do. And that's getting bigger and bigger, isn't it?
second
It is
largest. Not doesn't need a ballot at the moment, I think. Ian, is that right?
I don't believe it needs a ballot. However, it does sell out rather fast now. So if you're listening to this and haven't yet entered, you're probably already too late. So
Well, Ian,
maybe
sorry to interrupt, but of course, Instagram and Facebook and everything else, Manchester somehow have opened up a few more public places. I don't know how they've managed to do that today.
There we go. More
Yeah.
places in Manchester.
which may or may not be sold out by the time you're listening to this, listener, depending when you listen. But yeah, great advertising by Manchester there. To be fair, we could probably fit more people around Manchester. We're massive. No one's up here. We don't have as many people here as they do in London. We can just keep throwing them in. But yeah, Manchester's worth doing. Honestly, I'm going to give a shout out to Hull Marathon. I'm not sure if it's running this year, but if it is, Hull Marathon is amazing because you get to run on the Humber Bridge, Alan, which is the best thing that goes out of Hull.
See, quite a guys. I like that. I couldn't do that. Me and my vertigo, I could not run on that bridge. And in high winds, it moves from side to side. We had an interview with someone who did the Humber back to back race, like the tunnel, but you run along the Humber Bridge back to back. I couldn't do that at all. I would be pooping my pants.
No, absolutely. Although Will is probably also no cancelled due to what he said. So Becky, I hope you're listening to this because I think you're now in charge. I'm fairly confident that based on seniority that you're now in charge. So good luck, I guess. Alan, speaking of you working less and less in podcasts, do you want to chat a little bit about some exciting news?
Well, the exciting news is we have been approached by someone this week who would like to put a podcast out on our platform. So we are going to be launching another podcast very, very soon. It's going to be a bonus podcast, by the way. So this is not going to interfere with Who's Ought, Pint Size OCR, Swift Half, or any other podcast. It will be a bonus episode, and it's going to be all about adaptive athletes. Okay. So this is someone really well known in the elite circle of adaptive athletes. And yes, so I've just put it out there. We spoke this week. We have agreed that it's going to go ahead. So maybe I haven't got it in writing, but it's going to go ahead. I'm pretty certain it's going to go ahead. So watch this space, guys and girls. Hopefully in the next couple of weeks, we'll get the first episode to you, if not the first next month.
And the good news, Alan, is we've said the topic, but we haven't said the horse. So if they disappear, we just put another horse.
We just find a new horse. That was the idea.
Yeah, no one will ever know. It's fine. We can work it. It's fine. It's fine. Right. Alan, should we cover off a little bit of fitness racing news? And we also have the Tough Mudder map drop this week, but maybe we leave that till next week because it might be interesting to have a chat with some people who are doing the British obstacle sports race and Spartan race this weekend to get some idea how the ground is this year. So we'll move that to next week. And let's just talk some fitness racing news. Firstly, Deadly Dozen was this weekend in Macclesfield. Like Will faced, the weather was gorgeous. We've got some footage of that over on the UK.HXR Instagram page. Each reel is about 40 minutes, but you can skip ahead and just have a watch of some of the exercises. Alan, I messaged you and I said we should probably look at doing it sometime because it's a little bit of you. It's moving heavy stuff from one place to another.
Ian, I'm like it. I like the whole idea of, when you sent me I've spoken, yes, can't get words out now. I spoke to the race director myself a couple of weeks ago, and he told me what it was like running around a racetrack, all the challenges in the middle. It looked good on paper. It looked even better when you sent me clips of it. So I am, yeah, it's something I want to do. I don't think it was too expensive. I think for a race like that, I think it was £60, something like that.
Yeah, I think it was 60 if you're doing double, 70 if you're doing a solo, which ironically is actually a little bit more expensive now than OCR. So that's an interesting thing, but it is still priced at a reasonable price for that, Alan. I think you got a medal, a t-shirt, and actually a free beer this time because, and you can thank, well, Macclesfield local licensing for this. They couldn't get a beer license in time to actually sell alcohol there, but they did have a gin bar there. So the race director, who he's a good guy, he actually pre-bought a lot of beers that could be given away on the day.
I like it. I like it, Ian.
So that was good. So I think usually you get a medal and probably a t-shirt. You probably don't always get a beer. It was great. We saw our good friend Kieran McAvoy there, who was doing it in a relay. He had a lot of fun. Probably don't have enough time on Swift Half to go through it blow for blow. So head over to Hybrid Fitness Media. Me and Matt spoke about it for about 30 minutes or so last Sunday when it was still fresh in my brain. So go and have a listen over there. And we may get Jason on in the future on fitness racing to have a chat about that. Alan, High Rocks news.
Well, what's happening in High Rocks?
Well, the off season is over and the season starts again this weekend. In Australia and Singapore, we're having our first races of 24 to 25 season.
Awesome, Ian. Awesome. So the season starts in Australia 3 weeks after it ended here, and we have now got 11 months and 1 week of High Rocks again.
More than likely. To be fair, I guess it is Australia's autumn, I want to say. So it does kind of fit with their idea of doing it in the autumn. It's just the fact that that's how the world works. You have autumns at different places at different times. So High Rocks is starting now. You won't get it in Europe now until I want to say October. But if you want a racecation, Toronto has just released a completely new day in October. So for those of you who fancy going over to Canada, you can go and do High Rocks in October over there. It's a long way from Albuquerque, by the way, Alan.
That's what I was going to ask. I was just about to Google and see where it was compared to Albuquerque.
We do know a solo that's emigrated over to Toronto too. Toronto.
Yeah, we do know, of course, that we've got Kerry-Ann Daniels, one of the first guests of the UKOCR podcast, by the way. You'll probably know her better for OCR Birds, but she's over there, and I'm sure she will happily show anyone around who wants to go and have a racecation.
And it's because of Kerry-Ann that Overloads moved back to August, because she always used to attend in August. She's never attended in May, so that's the reason why we moved back to August. And I know she listens to this podcast, so there we go. That's the reason why.
Yeah, no pressure, Kerry-Ann, for attending the 2025 event. So we will absolutely see you there. Final bit of fitness news. Let's give a shout out to Nuclear Fit guys. They're going to have Hunter McIntyre there on July the 14th to do one of his seminars where he takes you through a workout and also gives you lots of tips. And Alan, the first 20 people to buy tickets gets a free race ticket to Nuclear Fit.
Well, that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. I bet they've already sold out, because I mean it's probably one of the biggest. It's one of the biggest growing fitness racing things at this moment in time is Nuclear Fit.
Is indeed, but hopefully there might be one or two tickets left. So have a look and go and jump on that. There is a whole tour for Hunter as well. So if that date isn't appropriate for you, I know that the Rocks Queens also have a date. I don't know it to hand. I think he's also going to Cumbria. So check out the dates for Hunter McIntyre. And I think that's pretty much all the fitness racing news, Alan. What else have we got left on the notes, if anything?
There's nothing on there, but just we're talking about road running early on. I just want to say a big shout out to my mate Jamie's son Lennon, because this week he is doing the first ever road race I ever did was Barnsley 10K. So that was back in 1986 when I was 16-year-old. Yes, people can now work out how old I am. So back in 1986, I was 16-year-old and I did Barnsley 10K. It stopped in about 95. We've never had a Barnsley 10K in the centre of Barnsley since 1995. It is back this Sunday, Ian. So, and my mate Jamie, his son's running Lennon, hoping for a top 50 spot. So we did one quite recently in a village called Wunwell, very close to us, and got a top 20. Barnes is a little bit bigger, so he's aiming for a top 50. He's only 16-year-old, so good luck to Lennon. Currently a sub 18-minute 5K runner, so he's got a chance of getting up there.
Wow, that is super quick. Final news. I did say I'd look up when you need to get your electronic votes for the AGM if you're not going to be there in person. 29th of June is when they need to be in. I want to say 7:30 p.m. But this comes out obviously before that. So you're listening to it now. Once you've finished, which will be in a few seconds to be fair, go check your inboxes and vote if you haven't already voted.
Cool. And on that note, Ian, shall we say goodbye to our guests?
Yeah, well, I will say I'll start with a goodbye from me.
Goodbye from me.
And it's a goodbye from me.
And listeners, once again, thank you for listening. You hope you enjoyed this week's podcast. And thank you to our guests as well. It's great to have guests into the Swift Half, and hopefully we might get some more coming in. In the meantime, you take care, you stay safe, and good luck this weekend. Speak to you all soon. Bye.